You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Comunio here. We are back with episode 15 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today, bro?
Doing good, man. I actually just got a sidewalk installed into my lawn at my house right now. So just finished that this week. I'm so glad that's over with. A lot of crazy stories to go along with it. But if y'all are interested in that, y'all can hit me up anytime. But that's just a little thing I wanted to do for my tenants, just so they don't have to keep walking through the grass and stuff. But other than that, I ain't got too much going on besides school finna start, unfortunately. Not looking forward to that either. But last year, man, this is it. So I'm excited for that too. How about you?
I'm doing good, bro. That's facts. It's the last year. Go ahead and knock it out. But yeah, I'm doing good. We just closed on a house on Wednesday, so I'm super excited about that. We're gonna start that rehab hopefully tomorrow. I just left that design meeting with the contractor. So we're picking out all the designs and stuff we want to do for that. So it's gonna be our most intensive flip that we're about to undertake. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Probably we're putting about almost $50,000 of work into it and gutting the whole. It's going to be super fun. I'm super excited about this one. She's also very excited. The contractor is. So we'll see. Hopefully we can get this one, done without major issues, and then get it sold quick. But other than that, yeah, I'm doing good. Also, we are, obviously, if y'all haven't noticed, we took a little intermission from the real estate series that we were doing, getting started investing in real estate. Last week, we had our first guest on the show, Leah Collins. So if y'all didn't see that episode, please go check that one out. That was a great episode. There was a lot of good info in there for really anyone. She talked about how she paid down $40,000 of debt in 18 months, which, is a tremendous feat if you ask me or anyone else. So yeah, definitely go check that one out. And like I said, we're taking an intermission. This week we have we're taking a little different route too from the real estate series also. And we're going to be talking about something I've been really wanting to talk about for a long time. I've been really fiending to get to this topic for a long time. So I think now was a good time to get to it before we get back into the real estate series and finish that one up. So, so let's get into it. So today, what we're going to be talking about is how cars keep you broke. And I think, like I said, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, especially because I just the way cars are perceived in society. They're seen as such they're seen as like a status symbol, right? For most people, they're not. A lot of people use them as objects to identify how wealthy someone is or how important someone is, or those kind of things, right? People. The key thing to know here is that, and this is just, I guess, human nature for most people, but people want to look rich even when they aren't rich, right? That's like, the essence of human greed. That's why you see people wearing, fake designer and all this kind of stuff. They want to be perceived a certain way, even if that's not really who they are. So that's essentially how a lot of people view cars, right? You'll see, and I say this because I see all the time, especially, being in real estate investing. I'll see people with a BMW parked in front of their double wide trailer. So I'm like, all right, shoot, I guess get it how you live. But I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, I'm just thinking too of the last house that we flipped, and the previous tenants that were living in there, man, they was driving. we had to evict them because they weren't making payments pretty much. They were driving nicer car than me. Shoot, they had what did she have? She had a Acura in the driveway, this nice Tahoe with rims and all this other stuff. I was like, all right, shoot, get it how you live, I guess. But if you can't really make your house payment, but you driving this luxury vehicle, I think you should reevaluate some of your priorities. But I think it's just a kind of thing. I always think like broke people, they spend money that they don't have to buy things that they don't need to impress people that they don't even know. And that is crazy to me because whenever I see that kind of stuff, it always reminds me of something Dave Ramsey always said. He always told me, or he always said, whenever I was a big fan of his, he always would say like, don't be jealous of people that pull up to the stoplight with these luxury vehicles or like this lifted up truck or $60,000 car. He said you should feel bad for them because they're drowning in that car. Don't envy them. Feel bad for them. And that's always something that I've, it's just been in the back of my head. And it's like, huh? Yeah. I mean, people, you got to think because a lot of times you'll see people with a car and oftentimes you want to instantly think like, oh man, they must be rich. They driving that. They must be rich. But in reality, I mean, they could be broke. They could be extremely broke. And I'm not going to lie, more than likely they probably are. So that's what you got to understand. Don't, it's kind of like Instagram. Everyone puts their best stuff out there, but it's not it's not really like genuine, right? So that's kind of how I see that.
Man, I mean, I can't express enough how much of a perception-based thing this is. People really like. It's more time. I think it's even worse now than it was back then. Like, I mean, than like 20, 30 years ago, just because our social media has just grown so much and people are just looking for that social acceptance. Yeah. Everybody's looking to like have the biggest and best stuff. So cars is like one of the highlights of a lot of people's lives right now, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people confuse what cars really are, which is a liability. So understand the difference between an asset and liability. Assets, like we always say, puts money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out your pocket. And the stigma with cars is that they are some sort of asset that's giving you social acceptance. That's basically like a symbol of wealth. Like you mentioned, people think that they people may think somebody is rich because they have a nice car. But if you compare somebody like Kawhi Leonard's 1997 Chevy Tahoe versus DeAndre Baker's Bentley that he just bought for his mom, if you saw both of them sitting on the street together, who would you think was richer? You would probably think DeAndre Baker's mom was richer than Kawhi Leonard, just based off the car they drive. And I think that's what the society is like deeming as an indicator of wealth. And that's really not the case, because I guarantee you Kawhi has way more money than rookie DeAndre Baker for the NFL. But people may not see it as that because of the car you drive. And I think that's probably like one of the root of the problems of why people see cars in such a high light. And it just goes back to that social acceptance piece that I think that hopefully we can dispel that during this episode, though.
Yeah, definitely. Before we kind of get into, some of the meat and potatoes of all this, as far as like how cars do keep you broke, I kind of want to get into a little bit of looking at this whole, dynamic of the car, sales business from a perspective of the manufacturer and the automaker, right? Because then I think it's easier to understand, how cars really do keep you broke if you look at it from the other side too. That's what I think. So I kind of want to approach it that way first, and then we'll get into that more so. But so the first thing I do want to talk about is, understanding the marketing system for car manufacturers and understanding how they market to the consumer, right? Manufacturers know that when consumers want to make a purchase, that most of the time they're making premeditated purchases, especially if it's something that is expensive, right? It's a premeditated purchase. Most people don't, impulsively go buy a car. At least we could say that. But I mean, can't speak for everyone. But marketers know that, customers go through various phases before they actually decide to buy someone. And they call this the customer journey, right? So like I said, the more expensive something is, the more stages there is within that customer journey. So at each stage of the customer journey, marketers are essentially trying to make the transition to the next stage or the next phase of the decision making easier, right? So I want to talk about how the customer journey looks like for a new car purchase. So as a consumer, right? So as a consumer, you'll see the ads, you'll see billboards, commercials, etc. You see all that kind of stuff out there. And then after that, you'll see the car on the street. So it's like real life marketing at that point. You'll see the car, someone else driving the car. So then after that, the third phase is you're gonna, after you see that, you're gonna be interested in it, and now you're gonna go seek your own information online. That's the first thing people usually do. So they'll go seek and compare the models and different kind of things. Then they might play with the configuration tool and customize the car how they want and try to personalize it for themselves. And then after that, the consumer is likely going to visit the dealership, right? They're just going to go to look. That's what they say all the time. Just going to go to look. Most of the time, a lot of people end up actually buying. But if they don't, they'll come back and they'll have, that discussion with their friends and their spouse, right? People that they may see as like, experts or some, sort of credibility. And then after that, if they move forward after that phase, they'll go to the test drive phase, right? And then, here, this is another place where they get a lot of people. So it doesn't necessarily say everyone goes through all these phases, but, people are actually, this is how they target the consumer to go through each of these phases. And they expect you to go through each of these phases because it's such a large purchase for most people. So then after the test drive, you might think it over again and discuss it with your spouse a little bit more. And after that, you'll probably decide, okay, yeah, I want to do this. And so you'll go sign a purchase agreement. And then after that, you'll drive the vehicle away and you'll establish your loyalty, your client loyalty to, that consumer. You'll say, oh man, I love a Toyota. Or Marlon will say, dang, I love this Corvette. So it's always something like that, right? So that's typically how they target the consumer. So it's crazy because they spend a ton of money on this, this whole customer journey. They spend, I read that in 2018, they spent $38.5 billion globally just on marketing. That's insane. They're doing that just to get people into the dealership. That's not even, on manufacturing costs or, overhead costs or anything like that. That's just to get to the dealership and looking, right? So you got to know, like, they're studying people, right? So, but why are they spending so much to get people into the dealership though? That's a question I think is worthy of asking. And again, think of it from that perspective. It's the car, automotive industry is a huge industry that supports a lot of people and a lot of people's jobs all over the world. So that's a big reason. Number one, they're spending $38.5 billion. And also it's because they want you to purchase cars directly from them. They want you to go use, Ford credit and Toyota credit and Chevy credit and, all those different companies or car manufacturers have, credit within each of their businesses. So that's typically, that's what they want. That's their goal from, spending this large amount of money with marketing people. They want to get you to the dealerships to actually, buy with them today.
You got to understand that these people, they are in the business of car sales. Like, they know that you have to spend money to make money. So they spend $38.5 billion on marketing. And I promise you, they're going to make a bigger return. They're going to make that money back up and then some afterwards from all the car sales they're going to get from the consumers. And so understand that these people, this is all they do. They know the business. They know so that they study people. So what they're doing is figure out, okay, when are people buying cars? So how long do they really want a car before they buy a new car? So imagine, if you go to a car dealership, you'll probably get anywhere from 5 to 7 year mortgage or a 5 to 7 year loan for a car. And more times than not, after that 5 to 7 years is up, you're going to probably want a new car by that time. So you are literally paying for a brand new car, driving for 5 to 7 years, pay them all their interest and all their money. Then you return a car that's depreciated in value back to them because you probably can't afford to buy a new car in full because you want another new car now. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you return them back the car that they sold to you. They're gonna sell that for a higher already, and then on top of that you're gonna buy another new car from them and then pay interest on that. This is a big cycle that you're just getting yourself into where you're just consistently making them money. So they have done all the study that they've needed to in order to know exactly how long to make the terms for the car loan. That way they can make all their money from one car, and then you're gonna return to them and they'll make all their money on the new car that they sell to you. It's just a constant cycle that you can really get into, and that's how you end up getting broke and making somebody else rich off of you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like Marlon said, he said cars are keeping you broke, and that's what I want to get into now and how that is happening. How are cars really keeping people broke? And this is like through a combination of three things that I really, think happen that keep people broke. And I've done some research on this, and I really think that these are the reasons why. So the first one that I want to get into, the first reason that cars do keep people broke is because most people can't afford to pay cash for a car. So what do? They borrow the money, right? So what I want to do first is, again, look at this from the manufacturer and business perspective before I look at it from the consumer perspective, and look at it with money in play. So the first thing I want to talk about when I talk about people not being cars with cash and borrowing the money to buy cars, you got to first look at it. I want to first look at it from the dealership perspective, because that's where it kind of originates from, right? So in car sales themselves, and especially new car sales, understand that financing and credit is the most profitable center within a car sales dealership. It's not from car sales. Actually, car sales are actually the third most profitable, I guess, because it's actually, they make more money from, like I said, financing and credit, and also from servicing cars. They actually make way more money than from actually selling cars. And I want to explain how that is first. So think about it. Okay, so a dealership, what they do essentially is they purchase a car from the manufacturer, and now they had a freedom to mark up the MSRP however much they want. The MSRP is the manufacturer's suggested retail price, right? So what they essentially are doing now is they buy the car, and they either buy it straight up without financing from the automaker or from the manufacturer, and then sell it from there, or they'll pretty much finance it from the dealership, which is it's known as floor plan financing. So that's essentially just like a loan to have a certain inventory. So they're taking out a loan to have that showroom inventory of cars. So if they do that, then in that case, then they have to sell the car quickly to avoid paying interest, right? Because they're paying $5 to $10 of interest per day just on having this car in their lot. So the longer a car sits in the lot, the worse it is for the dealership, obviously. Unless they pay cash for it, then it's probably not as bad, but they still want to get rid of it to recoup that investment. So I want to first explain this business model so that you can understand that they're not so you can understand how they're not profiting that much. Because I want to attack this first, that they're not really making money off of car sales, that they're making money from financing. I want to attack this. So I want to explain that business model. And so the three things that you should know about car sales business model is pretty much, there's three things. They have the invoice price, the retail price, and the MSRP. So the invoice price is essentially what the dealership paid from the automaker to get the car. That's what they invoiced. The retail price is what the consumer is going to pay to get the car from the dealership, and the manufacturer's suggested retail price is just that, the MSRP. So that's what the automaker will say, hey, we think this car should sell for this amount. Just so dealerships aren't out here ripping people off. So I mean, the dealership or the automaker will put that. So it's important to know that when you do buy a car, you will pay higher than the invoice price that the dealership paid.
Oh,
it's a business. So I mean, that's why if I was to sell something, if I was to buy something for $50 and I wanted to sell it, I'm not going to sell it for $48. I'm going to sell it for more than the $50 that I pay for it. I need to make a profit off. It's business, right? So you got to understand, you're not going to be paying wholesale prices when you go buy a car. So that being said, that right there tells you that dealerships are separate from the manufacturers. They're not necessarily a part of the manufacturers. Dealerships are their own entities. They're their own business structures. And that's why they're able to profit so much off of interest, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But that's what I want to explain to you. Because you got to think, I mean, you drive around, and depending on which city you're in, recognize the names like Ron Carter or Red McCombs or Ansira or all those kind of people. I mean, they essentially have their name on the dealership because they're franchisees of Toyota or Chevy or Nissan or whatever the case may be. They bought. It's like if I was to go buy a McDonald's franchise, that's essentially the same thing. I mean, I'm not going to be able to put Comunio McDonald's on it, but if I went and bought a dealership, I could say Alex Comunio Toyota or something like that, right? That's actually in my plans one day. But that's another story.
Yeah,
So these people, they just have, franchise agreement contracts with the manufacturers. They're able to, make business. They're making separate business deals with the manufacturers, and then they have their own business, running separately from the manufacturers. So whenever you see those dealerships, just know that they're not, they are partnered with the manufacturer, but they are completely separate entities.
That's without a doubt true, because Bob Borman over here in Lafayette, Indiana, I swear he has just about every car dealership that there is in the city. Like everywhere you look, if you're driving down the strip that has all the car dealerships, Bob Borman, that's all you see. I'm like, he's definitely, and I researched him a little bit. He's by far one of the richest men in Lafayette, Indiana, because of all these car dealerships, and he made that his profession. Like that's his business. That's what he does.
Yep. It's a business. It's a completely separate business. It's, and you got to understand, there's so many dealerships out there that they are essentially, because they're separate from the manufacturer, you can have two dealerships. I mean, there's rules that the manufacturer will say, hey, you can't have like this dealership this close to another dealership. So, but you got to still understand that they're competing against one another for the consumer to come and buy cars from them. They want the sale from the consumer. It's just like, a store or any other thing. They're competing for that sale. They're the ones that are able to manipulate the price. So, I mean, all these things being said, like all these factors, I guess, just because they're buying the car and selling it to the consumer will allow them, or it doesn't allow them actually to profit too much from the actual sale of the car, because you got to think there's really only, I mentioned that they're profiting from cars, or from credit and financing, servicing, and car sales, but they're making the bulk of their profit from credit and financing cars. They're essentially banks. These dealerships are essentially banks that just give out car loans. They're making money off of that interest and those kind of things. And you got to know that credit is just another way to make money in business, and car sales are just the tool that dealerships happen to use, right? Because you got to think, if I was to give someone $20,000, I'm going to need to make some money off of that. I'm not just going to give someone $20,000 and say, oh, you don't have to pay me interest. No, I'm going to need some of that back, at least, 5% or something. So that's what's known as cost of capital, or in other words, interest, right? You're not just going to let someone drive around on your $20,000 bill and not pay you nothing, right? It's essentially that's all a car is. They're just driving around on your $20,000, and you're going to need them to pay you something for that. So think about it from that perspective. They have to, if they can't profit too much from the car sales, because, when they sell a car, they're only able to profit a few $100s off of that markup or whatever the case may be. And then most of that is going back to the manufacturer, because they're the ones that actually put the money in for the marketing and the production of the actual vehicle. So they're the ones that have to make a bulk of the money. A dealership might come away with 2% of the actual sale price of a car. So how else are they going to stay profitable? Well, they're going to stay profitable from financing and interest of the cars, because with that, they have major flexibility on how much interest they can actually charge. They can decide, oh, I'm going to charge them 10% if I want. If their credit is that messed up, then I can. So that's the number one way that car dealerships are making money. They're not making money from car sales. So whenever you see a car dealership, don't think of them as a car dealership. Think of them as a bank. That's what they are. And what do banks want? Money. Banks are greedy. Remember that. So just know that. That's really what I want to say about that.
No doubt that car dealerships are banks, because you would never go to a car dealership that says 0% interest. Because like, how stupid would that be? Like, literally, they bought the car from the manufacturer. Now they have to sell it to you. Why would they sell it to you with 0% interest? They'll make the bulk of their money if they charge you interest, because if they just charge you nothing, all they're gonna do is pay back off the car that they originally bought it for, pay back the price they originally bought it for. So why not? So they might mark it up just a little bit, so the MSRP may not be much higher than the what you call it? It was the manufacturer price, like how much that the dealership cost to buy it.
The invoice.
Yes, the invoice price. So MSRP may not be a lot higher than the invoice price, but that interest is where they're gonna make the bulk of their money at. That's what they're banking on. That's why we're trying to make a point that these dealerships, that's where their business is really the financing piece more so than the sale of the car itself.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I do see a lot of times, I will see, you're going to see a lot of 0% APR too when you do see financing, but you got to understand, you do see 0% APR. They're not charging, you're not getting a discount on the car. You're going to be paying full retail price on that vehicle. So they might be advertising it as 0% interest, but they're not charged. All they did was build the interest into the price of the car. So now you're still going to be paying full price of the car, but it's just hidden now. It's a psychological thing. Like you said, they study people. They know how people act. They know what people, they know if people see 0% APR, they're like, oh, free money? No, it's nothing free. You're not getting no free money. Trust me, you paying for that car no matter what. If you could have an 850 credit score, you're not getting that car for free. So just understand that. And so now with that being said, I want to transition a little bit into now the consumer perspective of it. It was more so of the business and the production perspective of financing is actually the most profitable part of a car. So I want to transition to the actual consumer part. And with the consumer part, obviously, comes car payments, right? Because that's what we pretty much just talked about. So with car payments, actually, I read that there was an article, I forgot who it was from, I think CNN, that came out earlier this year and said that the average car payment in the U.S. is $551 with an average term of 69 months. 69 months. You know how long that is? That's 5.75 years. That's ridiculous.
Wow. So think about $550 a month. You said. Yeah. I just did the math on that. That is so multiply that by 12 to make that into a year. That's $6,600 a year on a new car. And imagine that's depreciating. That's a depreciating liability at that. So as soon as you drive off the lot, it's about to depreciate in its value immediately. But the sad thing is, people would be like, "Oh, that's a good deal." But as soon as you say go invest in something like real estate or stocks, they'd be like, "Oh, nah, it's risky, man. I don't know about that." But imagine if you could save that $550 per month, and then imagine this part too. If you would take what we said in episode 5, where we talked about house hacking, imagine saving both of those at the same time. So say if your rent was $1,000, saving $1,000 on rent and $550 per month, and multiply that by 12, you saving over $18,000 a year. I don't know. So understand that saving money is still making money. So I don't know what job you can ever go to that was going to give you an $18,000 pay raise in a year. I know I haven't had one like that. You may get like 1 or 2,000, maybe 3, but you're not getting 18,000. So you can all of a sudden get yourself an $18,000 bonus just by being smarter with your money, or like taking these tactics that we're providing for you, and I guess just being smarter about how you go about saving your money.
Yeah. So, I mean, what could you be, doing? Let's think about that. What could you be doing with that same $551? And I'm going to break down, this payment and why I say it's keeping you broke. Cause I mean, I'm saying that, but I'm going to break it down, but I want you to think about it first from what else would I be doing? Cause someone will hear this and be like, well, I mean, I had to have a car. What else? What do you mean? Well, I mean, if you maybe think what else you could be doing with that money, then you will really think, well, do I really, need this car? Is this the car I need? So, I mean, let's take that. Let's run the numbers. Let's take that same 551 on a 69-month term, right? So if you invested $551 for 69 months with just a simple 7% return, nothing extravagant, 7% return. That's going to equate to $46,343 over that 5.75 years. That is a significant amount of money. You got to ask. So is that 2013 car that you got 5.75 years ago or 6 years ago worth you losing out on almost $50,000 in those 6 years? I mean, yeah, if it is, then okay, great. There's nothing I can tell you then. You're doing the right thing, man. But if it's not, then you got to reconsider then. So, and it's crazy because it's actually standard now to offer 7-year payments, which is insane to think, but 7-year payments, that's 84 months. 12 times 7, that's 84 months. And that's, like I said, like we keep mentioning, the automakers study people. They know people. They've studied the psyche of people, right? So what they're doing, they spread payments over longer terms to appeal to more people. Mm-hmm. So when people see lower payments, they're going to instantly think, oh, I can afford that. So, I mean, it used to be standard to offer those 4 year, or 5 year car payments. But then, 2008, people weren't really buying, obviously, because of the recession. So, automakers, they ended up partnering with the bank to make terms longer so that people could afford them and, cars would be profitable again. And so, what that essentially does, low monthly payments are encouraging consumers to buy more expensive cars. That's their goal with that. That's their goal with spreading payments over that long. 84 months, that's seven, bro. Heck no, bro. And I mean, just do the math too. Like, think about think about it really intuitively. A $20,000 car on a 60-month term versus a $30,000 car on an 84-month term. Each are gonna have pretty much almost the same payment if it's, if we're just talking the principal, let's say 0% APR. If we're just talking principal, they're gonna have, if you do the math, 20,000 divided by 60 months is gonna be $333 a month. 30,000 divided by 84 months is $357 a month. So essentially, I mean, you're only paying, and this is from a consumer, they're gonna say, well, I'm only paying 24 more dollars a month. Yeah, but you're paying that for 2 more years. So I mean, that's the perspective you gotta approach it from. And because I mean, I'm just thinking from me, bro. If I had bought a car in 2012, bro, if I was still making payments on a brand new car from 2012, I'm just thinking about how the cars look in 2012 compared to how they look now, bro. I'll be hurt if I was still paying $400 a month on a car from 2012, bro. And the good and well had close to 100,000 miles on it, bro. And that's how they get you. That's how they get you. If that's the business of it.
Like I said, it's a cycle, man, because just because your interest in the card runs down doesn't mean the payment runs down as well. That $400, that $550 that we mentioned earlier, that's lasting from 2012 to right now until that last penny is paid off. And that's, like you said, that's that cycle, because you're essentially about to make these dealerships rich. Because guess what? By 2019, if you got a 2012, you're like, bruh, those new 2020 cars looking nice. I might have to go ahead and trade this one on in. You just finished paying it off, bro. Now you about to go trade it in and just keep making them more money with a new loan.
And that's the thing that they do too. We can keep saying it. They study people, right? Because they know within the time that you finish paying off that loan, there's going to be a new model and a new body style of that same car that you're driving, right? And it's going to look a lot better than the one you're driving. So what are you going to say? Well, that car does look a lot better, and I just finished paying mine, so let me just go get another one, and let me go get that nice one, and then you just be in that cycle. So, anyways, that's the first point about how car broke. The second point that we want to get into is the fact that the car that people are not paying cash for, and the car that they are borrowing money for, is depreciating. You're paying for a depreciating object, and you gotta. You got to think of how crazy that is. And before I get into this, this only really applies to new cars because, with new cars, they lose 60% on average of their value within the first 5 years. So when you buy used cars, you let, someone else pay for the depreciation for you. But you're buying a new car, then, you're the one that's paying for the depreciation. So, and it's crazy because you hear it a lot, but it's true. Brand new cars lose 10% the minute you drive off the lot. So you buy a $20,000 car, the minute you drive off the lot, it's only worth $18,000. So hope that 1 mile that you just drove, that was a $2,000 mile that you just drove. So, and this is with American just standard cars. It's even higher if you're buying luxury cars, because with luxury, especially those German cars, a lot of the value is just in the name. Because you got to think those cars that are think about a Rolls Royce, right? A Rolls Royce, and this is an extreme example, but a Rolls Royce is a $300,000, $400,000 car. So it doesn't cost $300,000 to manufacture a Rolls Royce. Yeah, they make it by hand and they do all that stuff, but it's not $300,000. I promise it's not $300,000. Mm-hmm. You're paying a lot of that value is just in the name to say I'm driving a Rolls Royce, right? That's what you're paying for. So over time, that's not worth a lot. So it's going to lose an enormous amount of value. I can't imagine how much value you lose when you drive a Rolls Royce off the lot. I don't even want to know. I know it's crazy though. But I mean, this alone itself justifies it being a bad investment, if you even want to call it an investment. Hardly call a car an investment, but a lot of people will say that. And if you really think it is, and I want you to just know that what you're saying is that you're essentially turning $30,000 into $10,000. That's the investment you made. I hope that was a good investment. I hope it really was. So this is like the most expensive thing that people are gonna buy that goes down in value. It's crazy to me because it's like, bro, I'm paying interest on something that's losing value, bro. That's like if I was going to the gym and I was gaining weight from exercising. That's how crazy that is, bro. It's insane to think about, but that's really what's happening. I'm out to the gym and gaining weight every time I exercise, bro. That's what you're doing when you buying a brand new car. So, anyways,
that's so stupid. But I mean, it's to your point though. Now, people do misuse the word investment so many times. Like people who say that my house is my greatest investment, even though a house is not for one, it's not an asset. Like we mentioned earlier, that doesn't put money in your pocket. You're still paying a mortgage. The car is even worse. At least a house appreciates in value over time. You may be able to call it an investment of some sort, but not. I mean, it's still not an asset though. But a car, bro, you are paying on it and it's losing value at the same time. So in business, it's like you would never do this. Like you mentioned, 30,000 turned into 10,000. Your ROI is legit negative every time you buy a brand new car. Like you are paying for a depreciating asset, bro. A depreciating liability. Excuse me, it's not an asset by any means. So,
yeah, check yourself.
My apologies, but it's like would you invest in a stock that's going to lose 10% as soon as you put your money into it? How dumb would that be? Like you would just laugh at that. Like I'm sure somebody's over here laughing. Why would I pay for a stock that's going to lose money? That's what you're doing with a car. Like as soon as you drive off the lot, you just spent $2,000 just to drive off the lot for a minute.
Yeah.
Like so, understand that this is a huge liability, especially when it's brand new. And I actually want to give an example of my personal car. So in 2007, my parents bought a brand new Dodge Durango. At the time, my dad told me they spent roughly $40,000 on the Durango. Man, if I searched prices earlier today of like what Durangos are selling for now. They're selling between $5,000 and $8,000. So that means that's probably
that high.
Exactly. So mine being 180 something thousand miles on it, I could probably only resell it to the dealership for maybe $2,000 to $3,000. So you're literally telling me that my car has depreciated from $40,000 to $2,000 to $3,000, bro. This is what I'm saying. This is how bad the depreciation factor is when it comes to cars, and especially with brand new cars. Like I can go buy the old 2007 Dodge Durango now for $5,000. All the depreciation is gone now, so I could probably sell it for what I bought it for, say in a couple years. But I'm not saying to buy something that's 12, 13 years old, but you don't have to buy something that's brand new either, though, because you have to pay for the depreciation, like Alex mentioned.
Yeah. Definitely. That's all great points. I'm glad you mentioned that too. So the third point that we want to get into, to kind of close this out a little bit, is that maintenance costs are never going to stop. This is the third way that cars keep you broke. You're always going to be paying maintenance. It's like, because a lot of people will say like when you buy a house that when you own it outright, you really own it and you're not paying anymore. You still are. You're still paying, the taxes and insurance on it. So you still have to pay stuff even when you own a house outright. And it's the same thing with a car. You can own it outright, but you're still going to be paying maintenance on it forever, obviously, right? It's a mechanical object that has all these moving parts. Anything can break at any point. You're also insurance, right? So you're paying insurance, oil, tires, brakes, anything that can happen, right? So that's really and same thing with the depreciation too. It's a lot higher for those, luxury and German cars. And that's really because there's only some specialized technicians that are able to work on some of these cars. So you got to imagine with that, you're going to be paying a premium just because of that. They're not cheap. If you have, a Bentley, you can't just take it to Jiffy Lube and think they'll be able to, get you right. No, you got to take it to the specialized technician, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. So, again, that's another thing that's happening with them. And it's crazy to me because I mean, just bouncing off of the point that I was making earlier when I was talking about 7-year-old car, and imagine like paying a car payment on a car from 2012. Well, imagine you're paying a car payment on a car for 2012, and you're paying maintenance on a car from 2012. So now you're making payments. It lost its value, and it needs repairs. So this car has just cooked you, bro.
I mean, like we said earlier, cars are keeping you broke. But I mean, I know there's that one person that's just going to be gung ho about buying this new car because people always want to talk about, oh, there's less maintenance on new cars. But okay, that may be true. So you may not pay for the first year or two for maintenance because it's brand new. All the parts are new. But I don't care how new something is. If it's mechanical and it has a life cycle to it. Yeah. At some point, it's going to mess up, and now you're going to be paying for something that's more expensive because, like Alex was talking about with the German cars or any more expensive car, you're going to pay a premium versus an old car for the maintenance and repairs of that car. So like he mentioned, oil changes, brakes, tires, air filters, whatever it may be. Oh, don't forget about gas. How all gas is now pretty much premium on newer cars. You have to pay a lot more premium gas. That's a thing in itself. Like with my car, I paid 87 unleaded. I'm like, man, the more cars I see now, the less I see that regular gas coming out. So just with that in general, you're going to pay a lot more in maintenance over time as time goes on. Maybe not initially, but initially you're already paying a higher payment in general, or you had to pay more of a car payment altogether anyway. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, it's still depreciating. So you probably, once you're done with that 7 years of making those payments, guess what you're gonna be doing anyway? Looking for that next new car.
Oh man, that's crazy. But yep, that's really how it goes. So what we want to do now, because those were the three main points we made about how cars are going to keep you broke. So what we want to do is kind of give some alternatives to car payments. The first one, well, this is probably the biggest one, is just save up and buy a used car with cash, right? Like I mentioned earlier, let someone else pay for that depreciation within those first, that first 60% of value. I'm not saying go buy a freaking car from 05. I'm just saying buy, a reliable car that's 5 years old or something with cash. That's like, this is just my opinion. Obviously a lot of people, they're going to hear this and be like, well, I want a brand new car. And look, if that's the case, then go do you. I'm not going to count your pockets. I'm not stressing over you. Go do you. But this is just some alternatives. What you also could be doing, and this is something that I've, seen as a trend as I started, studying financial freedom and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people, instead of buying new cars, they'll buy the used car with cash, and then they'll invest the car payment. So let's take that 551. They'll invest it for, or whatever their car payment would be. They'll invest it for the term of whatever that car, or 5 years or 60 months, whatever a car payment term they would have had. They'd invest that for that period of time. And then after that term, they'll go buy a newer, better car with cash. So now they can go buy that brand new car if they wanted to. Because now, remember we mentioned it earlier, if you were investing 551 for 69 months, after 5.75 years, you're going to have $46,343. So now, essentially what you could do is take that $46,343 and go buy a new car with cash. If you wanted to, you could spend it all on a car. I promise you could. Because you know what? At that point, it's you would be the one having the nice car. The nice car wouldn't be having you. And that's why I say, like, I'm not opposed to you having a nice car. I'm just opposed to a nice car having you, right? There's a difference between that. I don't want, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I do want people to at least know, like, bro, there's other ways. You don't have to get, be a slave to this car payment like you are a slave to all this other stuff. So and a lot of people, they're going to hear this and they're not going to agree with it. They're going to feel like, but I deserve it. I want a new car. And that's fine. That's fine. I just want you to know what it's doing to you and how it is keeping you broke. And look, you make a decision based off of that.
Honestly, everything you just said is nothing but talking about delayed gratification. That's something that I preach pretty much 24/7. Like, you don't have to agree with what we're saying right now, but at the same time, understand this is what the wealthy are doing. So regardless of how you may think, if your aspirations are to be wealthy at some point in life, you can't be sitting here buying all of these luxury vehicles, this luxury items in general first. We mentioned before with Grant Cardone, he said wealthy to buy luxuries last and the poor middle class buy memories. So which one are you in this case?
Yep. So a lot of people are gonna hear this and think, well, I could just buy I could just lease a car then. Well, I kind of want to debunk why leasing a car is not, because I always hear the things about leasing versus buying, and this is, I want to close out this episode this way, just talking about why leasing a car is not better than buying. If you do have to, go get a car, never ever lease a car. And this is what I want to kind of close the episode off with this. So, I mean, you got to know that leasing a car is the biggest rip off and most expensive, of all the methods of actually acquiring or financing a car, right? Dealers make their most money from leasing cars. We talked about from financing and from, credit. Well, let me just set up a scenario to explain how dealerships make money off of leasing cars. I mean, imagine that you're a car manufacturer and you had a car that you were going to sell for 20,000, right? So you knew that 4 years later that the car would be worth, let's say, or 70% less than what it is worth now. So so it'll be worth $6,000 4 years from now. So 60 to 70% is the average depreciation within 4 years. So instead of selling the car as a dealership or the manufacturer, instead of selling the car for 20,000 and letting the individual that purchases it lose the $14,000 of value over the 4 years, you rent it to them for 4 years, otherwise known as leasing. So at the end of the 4-year lease term, you get a car back that's now worth $6,000 instead of 20,000, right? So knowing that, how can I, as a manufacturer, prevent myself from losing that $14,000 of value? Well, you'd have to rent the car to them for a monthly price that's greater than the monthly amount that you're going to be losing every month while they have a car, right? So then the monthly amount that you're losing, so 14,000 divided by 48 months is 291.67, right? So that's how much you're losing every month as a manufacturer. So you know that you have to charge them more than $291 per month for that, so that you can at least cover that loss of value, right? So another thing you also know as a car manufacturer is that you make more money on the financing than you do from the actual car itself, right? We just talked about it earlier, right? So now as a manufacturer, you're losing out on the interest gain from the financing portion part of a car when you allow someone to rent it, right? So not only do you want to recoup the $291 a month for depreciation, you also want to make sure you're collecting the money from the interest you lose out on by not financing a purchase. So think about it. You just gave someone $20,000 for 4 years. You want to collect interest on that, right? I would. So now you collect that interest. Now don't forget, there's also the profit margin. So you still want to make money off of that car, because now if you don't sell it, you lose money. You didn't have a profit margin built in. So now you still want to make money off of that car. So that has to get added to the payment also. So when you lease a car, you're paying for the loss of the value, the interest they missed out on by not financing the car for you, and the profit margin. All three of those things are put into the monthly payment whenever you do lease a car. And then on top of that, they don't even have to disclose how much interest they're charging you, because it's technically not even a loan. If it was a sale, then they would have to disclose how much interest they're charging you. But you can technically, if you're good with a calculator, you can work backwards to estimate how much interest they are actually charging you if you know the depreciation rate and assume a profit margin. And when I did this research for this, I read that, they're charging around 14% interest on a car lease. So if you think about it from that perspective, that is ridiculous.
So many meat and potatoes in what you just said, but that was a lot of good information on how on why car dealerships may choose to lease a car, because honestly, if you break it down to a simple level, they're really trying to make more money from leasing it than they are from financing it, like selling it outright to you. So like, just to give you some practical numbers, I'm just for the audience in general too. It say if they lease out that same car, that $200,000 car that they 20,000, not two, if they that $20,000 car that they're leasing out, say that they lease it out for $500 a month. You said the term was 4 years, so 500 times 48 months is $24,000. That's how much money that you're going to be paying as the consumer that you're paying to that car dealership. Remember, they're only losing 14,000 because through depreciation. So, and at the end of the day, they're making $10,000, even though that they just lost 14,000. So they made 24,000 and they lost 14. This is why these car dealerships are investors. That's a 41% profit that they just made over those 4 years. They made, or you can look at it as they made $2,500 each year off of one car. And guess what? They can, after that lease, you still are going to be done. Like, you gained the consumer, you gain nothing from this car besides some memories that all of our poor and middle class like to gain. But and they can go right back and resell it too. For probably more than that 6,000. Or they even better, they gonna probably lease it out again. And so understand, these car dealerships, they are the investors and they're just taking advantage of us as the consumers.
Yeah, I mean, look. Their goal, when you bring that car back, their goal is to be able to resell that vehicle if they're not going to lease it again. That's why typically, I mean, that's where their used cars are coming from. They're coming from leases that were once brand new cars a lot of the times, right? And because think about it, on top of that too, if you drive over the allotted number of miles, they're going to charge you extra for that. They say, hey, you only got this amount of miles over the term of this lease. If you drive over that, they're charging you per mile. Or if you bring the car back with scratches or dinks on it, right? So, I mean, with all these things being considered, right, there's no possible mathematical way that it could be cheaper to lease a car than owning a car. So by definition, it has to cost more than purchasing 100% of the time, unless that car manufacturer was stupid. And trust me, they are not stupid. I mean, you could call them a lot of things. You could call them crooks. You could call them, slimy. You could call them whatever. But stupid is not one of the things you could call them people, because they are not dumb. That is a business plan. Shoot, that's why I said, bro, let me give me a car dealership one day, bro. It's in the vicinity.
For sure.
But yeah. So to close out this episode, we kind of want to get into just give a financial freedom perspective for purchasing cars, right? So typically people, whenever they are financially free or when they're on the road to financial freedom, they will just pay cash for a car, like we mentioned earlier, or they're just going to use cash flow to pay for it, right? So, I mean, cash flow, you're letting your assets pay for your liabilities. That's what financially free people do. And that's what my plan is to do too. My goal is to get a Mustang within, the next year or so, the new one. But before I do that, I need to buy another house that's going to pay for that Mustang, right? So I'm going to buy another house, move into that one, move out of the one I'm in now, rent out my side of this house, and let this side's rent, which will be all cash flow, pay for my Mustang or whatever car, right? That's how you have to approach it if you really do want a new car, which like I said, I'm not opposed to you having a nice car. I'm just opposed to it having you. With me, I'm not gonna let that new car have me. I'm gonna let that new car have my tenant. My tenant will pay. My tenant will pay for that new car when I move out of here. So,
man, I mean, I'm laughing, but I love the mindset though, because understand that it's okay to have a new car, but it's even better if you have an asset that's paying for it. Yeah. You don't want to come out of your hard-earned income and pay for this liability that's depreciating over time. Have an asset that'll pay for that. That way, your earned income. So, say if you can still keep your job. Nobody's ever saying to quit your job if you don't want to. If you love what you do, please continue to do it. So your earned income can now go to other things besides a depreciating liability, which is a car. And I still believe that if you want to buy a new car, there's still a good time. There are times that are good to do it. And a big one is if you plan on driving a car for more than 10 years. Don't be one of these people that's going to drive for 5 to 7 years and then trade it in right after. Like for me, when I get this Corvette, I'm gonna speak it into existence. I'm gonna have it at one day, and it's not gonna be far off from now. But right now I'm generating the assets to pay for that Corvette because I'm not paying out of my personal pockets. Understand that too. But when I do get it, that's gonna be a car that I have probably into the rest of my life because I've been talking about it since 15 years ago. And that's something that I really want, and I know I'm going to want for a long time. So that's the time I think is a good time to buy a new car. But until then, it's okay to buy a car that's like 5 years old. It's like for me, I'm going to probably buy a Dodge Charger like next year, just because my '07 Dodge Durango is pretty much beat up at this point. It's about to be 13 years old. It served its purpose. I might keep it. I don't need to trade it in really, because it's like a big vehicle. Like it's good to like for storage and stuff. But other than that, I'm done driving it now. But it's gotten its use though. You don't want to trade no car in after 5 to 7 years because now you've paid for the depreciation and somebody else is finna benefit off of you paying for it.
Facts.
And like Grant Cardone said with one of the videos that we said before, once you're wealthy, you can afford to be stupid. So that's how I'm taking that mindset with this Corvette and just anything about my life at the end of the day.
Big facts. Big facts.
Many self-made millionaires and financial freedom experts have made the argument that buying a brand new car is the single worst financial decision you will ever make. And honestly, I'd have to agree. However, I'll add the qualifier that this only applies if you're paying for the car with your earned income, meaning money you earn from trading in your time for it. It's one thing to buy a house. Yes, it takes money out of your pocket every month, but at least it's going to most likely appreciate. Now, unless you have a rare collector's edition type of vehicle, your car will always go down in value. Now, this is a good time to talk about opportunity costs. As we've mentioned before, opportunity cost is the benefit that is missed or given up when you choose one alternative over another. For example, I spent about $2,000 recently on a vacation. By doing that, I forfeited the opportunity to invest that money into my stock or real estate portfolio for the happiness I received from going on vacation with friends. Not a bad way to spend that money if you ask me. Now, let's say I spent that $2,000 on a down payment for a brand new $20,000 car. Okay, so I essentially just borrowed money to drive around with someone's $18,000. Now, I owe them a monthly payment until it's paid off, and the car is losing its value every day, so I can never recoup the entire $20,000 I'll have spent by the time it's paid off. So really, I spent $2,000 in exchange for that. Now, what if I took the same $2,000 and used that as a down payment on a $6,000 car? Or better yet, save the entire $6,000 and buy the car in cash, and use what I would have been paying monthly to invest in an asset that will increase in value. Then after time, use the money generated from the asset to buy a better car in all cash. Obviously, the underlying factor in all of this is the ability to delay your gratification. As people, we often are inclined to pursue the short-term reward because it is easier to attain than making the effort to attain long-term rewards. This may be because of low motivation. We don't value the longer-term reward enough to postpone gratification. If this is the case for you, then your why or your reason to be pursuing financial independence is not strong enough. When you have a strong foundational why, you'll find that delayed gratification will become second nature.
But that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged. So check that out and share them posts. But until then, we out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.